Hey guys, this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing with you some upcoming releases for the remaining half of 2021. So let's get started, you guys. As usual, I have 20 books that I'm going to share with you, and this is by no means the entire list of all of the future historical fiction that's coming out this year for the remaining half of 2021. The genre just keeps getting bigger and bigger with so many great books coming out. So yeah, this list, in some ways, it's kind of like just my own personal interests and things that really just kind of flew out and sparked my own interests and whatnot. So yeah, definitely explore Goodreads and discover some other historical fiction out there that you may, you might prefer. But yeah, this is just a very, very small sampling that I guess I just want to make you guys aware of. And yeah, of course, at the very end of this video, in the comments, definitely please share with me any other books that you've heard about that are coming out in the remaining half of the year, so that way I can add them to this list, because I'm always looking for new, interesting, and different historical fiction, that's for sure. So as I usually do for this video, so I can help me get through it, I'm going to be looking here at my computer. I'm on Goodreads on all of these pages, just reading the plot summary. So yeah, if you want to know more about these books, yeah, definitely check out Goodreads. So first up, we have Clerk and Division by Naomi Hirahara. 20-year-old Aki Ido and her parents have just been released from Manzanar, where they have been detained by the U.S. government since the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, together with thousands of other Japanese Americans. The life in California the Idos were forced to leave behind is gone. Instead, they are being resettled 2,000 miles away in Chicago, where Aki's older sister Rose was sent months earlier and moved to the new Japanese-American neighborhood near Clark and Division's streets. But on the eve of the Ido family's reunion, Rose is killed by a subway train. Oh wow. Aki, who worshipped her sister, is stunned. Officials are ruling Rose's death a suicide. She got run over by a freaking subway train. How is that a suicide? Aki cannot believe her perfect, polished, and optimistic sister would end her life. Her instincts tell her there is much more to the story, and she knows she is the only person who could ever learn the truth. Sounds good, guys. I am definitely going to pick that up. That sounds really, really good. The Clockmakers Wife by Daisy Wood, London, 1940. Britain is gripped by the terror of the Blitz, forcing Nell Spellman to flee the capital with her young daughter, leaving behind her husband Arthur, the clockmaker who keeps Big Ben chiming. When Arthur disappears, Nell is desperate to find him, but her search will lead her into far darker places than she ever imagined. So yeah, we have London in 1940, and this is also like a dual narrative book, because then it looks like some of the narrative is going to take place in New York in the present day. When Ellie discovers a beautiful watch that had once belonged to a grandmother she never knew, she becomes determined to find out what happened to her. But as she pieces together the fragments of her grandmother's life, she begins to wonder if the past is better left forgotten. Emily's House by Amy Belding Brown. Massachusetts, 1869. Margaret Mayer has never been one to settle down. At 27, she's never met a man who has tempted her enough to relinquish her independence to a matrimonial fate, and she hasn't stayed in one place for long since her family fled the potato famine a decade ago. When Maggie accepts a temporary position at the illustrious Dickinson family home in Amherst, it's only to save money for her upcoming trip west to join her brothers in California. Maggie never imagines she will form a life-altering friendship with the eccentric, brilliant Miss Emily, or that she'll stay at the homestead for the next 30 years. So yeah, this sounds like a story, about a woman who, she seems to kind of get a close relationship with, poet Emily Dickinson. So that sounds pretty cool. The Forest of Vanishing Stars by Kirsten Harmel. After being stolen from her wealthy German parents and raised in the unforgiving wilderness of Eastern Europe, a young woman finds herself alone in 1941 after her kidnapper dies. Her solitary existence is interrupted, however, when she happens upon a group of Jews fleeing the Nazi terror. Stunned to learn what's happening in the outside world, she vows to teach the group all she can about surviving in the forest, and in turn they teach her some surprising lessons about opening her heart after years of isolation. But when she is betrayed and escapes into a German-occupied village, her past and present come together in a shocking collision that could change everything. Ooh. The Hidden Child by Louise Fine. Eleanor Hamilton is happily married and mother to a beautiful 4-year-old girl, Mabel. Her wealthy husband, Edward, a celebrated war hero, is a leading light in the burgeoning eugenics movement. The very ideas that will soon be embraced by Hitler, and is increasingly important in designing education policy for Great Britain. But when Edward and Eleanor's otherwise perfectly healthy daughter develops debilitating epileptic seizures, their world fractures. Mabel's shameful illness must be hidden, or Edward's life's work will be in jeopardy, and the family's honor will be shattered. When Eleanor discovers Edward has been keeping secrets, she calls into question everything she believed about genetic inferiority, and her previous unshakable faith in her husband disintegrates. Alarmed, distressed, and no longer able to bear the family's burden, she takes matters into her own hands. Oh, that sounds good, because that's kind of like a real thing that was going on, you know, in Nazi Germany, pretty much. The Ice Swan by, let me try to pronounce this, you guys, Janelle Silnowski. I can't pronounce that. Like I said, it's called The Ice Swan. Look that up because I can't pronounce her name. We're taking place in Petrograd, 1917. Fleeing the murderous flames of the Russian Revolution, Princess Svetlana Dowski hopes to find safety in Paris with her mother and sister, but the city is buckling under the weight of the Great War, and the Bolsheviks will not rest until they have erased every Russian aristocrat from memory. Svetlana and her family are forced into hiding in Paris's underbelly, with little to their name but the jewels they sewed into their corsets before their terrifying escape. Born the second son of a Scottish duke, the only title Wynne McClellan cares for is that of surgeon. Putting his talents with a scalpel to good use in the hospitals in Paris, Wynne pushes the boundaries of medical science to give his patients the best care possible. After treating Svetlana for a minor injury, he is pulled into a world of decaying imperial glitter. Intrigued by this mysterious, cold, and beautiful woman, Wynne follows Svetlana to an underground Russian club where drink, dance, and questionable dealings collide on bubbles of vodka. Out of money and options, Svetlana agrees to a marriage of convenience with the handsome and brilliant Wynne, who will protect her and pay off her family's debts. It's the right thing for a good man to do, but when Wynne cannot help but hope the marriage will turn into one of true affection. When Wynne's life takes an unexpected turn, so does Svetlana's, and soon Paris becomes as dangerous as Petrograd, and as the Bolsheviks chase them to Scotland and beyond, Wynne and Svetlana begin to wonder if they will ever be able to outrun the love they are beginning to feel for one another. You guys, seriously, I'm sorry if I kind of butchered some of that. I'm just terrible at pronouncing Russian names and whatnot. I'm not Russian. I attempted it though. Sorry. Island Queen by Vanessa Riley. Born into slavery on the tiny Caribbean island Mistresss, Doll bought her freedom and that of her sister and her mother from her Irish planter father, and built a legacy of wealth and power as an entrepreneur, merchant, hotelier, and planter that extended from the marketplaces and sugar plantations of Dominica and Barbados to a glittering luxury hotel on the South American continent. Vanessa Riley's novel brings Doll to vivid life as she rises above the harsh realities of slavery and colonialism by working the system and leveraging the competing attentions of the men in her life. A restless shipping merchant, Joseph Thomas, a wealthy planter hiding a secret, John Sells, and a roguish naval captain who will later become King William IV of England. This sounds really great, you guys. I really like the whole premise of this about, you know, a woman of color who, you know, really rises above her station, and looks like she makes like a luxury hotel out there somewhere in South America. That sounds great. I think I'm definitely probably gonna pick this up because it sounds really great and really just different from my usual reading. The Mad Women's Ball by Victoria Moz. And this book originally came out back in 2019, it says, but I think it was originally in French. Looks like it was originally in French, but I think it's just now being released in America here. So we're taking place in an asylum. You guys, of course, an asylum in Paris, 1885. Dr. Charcot holds all of Paris in thrall with his displays of hypnotism on women who have been deemed mad and cast out from society. But the truth is much more complicated. These women are often simply inconvenient, unwanted wives, those who have lost something precious, wayward daughters, or girls born from adulterous relationships. For Parisian society, the highlight of the year is the Lenten Ball, the Mad Women's Ball, where the great and good come to gawk at the patients of the asylum, dressed up in their finery for one night only. For the women themselves, it is a rare moment of hope. Genevieve is a senior nurse. After the childhood death of her sister, she shunned religion and placed her faith in both the celebrated Dr. Charcot and science. But everything begins to change when she meets Eugenie, the 19-year-old daughter of a bourgeois family that has locked her away in the asylum. Because Eugenie has a secret, she sees spirits. And yeah, that's about it. Inspired by the scandalous banned book that all of Paris is talking about, the Book of Spirits, Eugenie is determined to escape from the asylum and the bonds of her gender and seek out those who will believe in her. And for that, she will need Genevieve's help. This sounds great, you guys. I definitely gotta pick this up. Sounds like kind of right up my alley. I love books that deal with asylums. It's always great. The Manningtree Witches by A.K. Blakemore. I love this cover, you guys. This is just such a unique, different type of cover for historical fiction. I love it. It just really draws the eyes in, I think. England, 1643. Puritanical fervor has gripped the nation, and in Manningtree, a town depleted of men since the wars began, the hot terror of damnation burns in the hearts of women left to their own devices. Rebecca West, fatherless and husbandless, chafes against the drudgery of her days, livened only occasionally by her infatuation with the handsome young clerk, John Eads. But then a newcomer, Matthew Hopkins, arrives, a mysterious, pious figure, dressed from head to toe in black. He takes over the Thorn Inn and begins to ask questions about what the women on the margins of this diminished community are up to. Dangerous rumors of covens, pacts, and bodily wants have begun to hang over women like Rebecca, and the future is as frightening as it is thrilling. Sounds great, guys. I love, this time in history, with the fervor of witchcraft and witch trials and whatnot. This should be great. I definitely gotta pick this up. My Mistress's Eyes Are Raven Black by Terry Roberts. Taking place Ellis Island, 1920. New York harbors immigration and public health authorities are slowly recovering from the war years when a young pregnant Irish woman disappears from the isolation hospital on Ellis Island. Stephen Robbins, a specialist in finding missing persons, is assigned the case. Yet when he arrives at the isolation hospital, he discovers an inexplicable string of deaths and disappearances among immigrant patients, and a staff that seems to be hiding a chilling secret. Stephen finds an ally in Lucy Paul, an undercover nurse who is also investigating the mysterious incidents. Together they begin to unearth a horrifying conspiracy masked beneath the hospital's charitable exterior. As Stephen and Lucy get closer to the truth and each other, they are swept directly into the danger haunting Ellis Island and become the next targets themselves. Oh my god. The Perfume Thief by Timothy Sheffert. Clementine is a 72-year-old reformed con artist with a penchant for impeccably tailored suits. Her life of crime has led her from the uber-wealthy perfume junkies of Belle Epoque, Manhattan, to the scented butterflies of Costa Rica, to the spice markets of Marrakesh, and finally the bordellos of Paris, where she settles down and opens a legitimate shop bottling her favorite extracts from the ladies of the cabarets. In 1941, as the Germans stranglehold on the city's titans, Clementine's perfume making attracts the notice of Oscar Voss, a Francophile Nazi bureaucrat who comes to demand Klem's expertise and loyalty in his mysterious play for Hitler's favor. Clem has no choice but to surrender fully to the con, but while she knew playing the part of collaborator would be dangerous, she never imagined it would be so painfully intimate. At Oscar's behest, and in an effort to win his trust, Clem recounts the full story of her life and loves, this time without the cover of the lies she came to Paris to escape. Ooh. The Second Mrs Astor by Shauna Abe. You guys, I'm ridiculously excited for this book. I think it might just be me, but out of this entire list of books that I have here, this is probably at the top of my list that I'm anxious for, you guys. Like I said, this might just be me because I'm weird. He was American royalty, the richest man in the country, and Fifth Avenue scion of the Gilded Age. She was a vivacious teenage socialite, suddenly and unexpectedly thrust into fame, simply for falling in love with a famous man nearly 3 decades her senior. Brought to life in the sweeping work of historical fiction by Shanna Abe, the love story between Jack Astor and Madeline Force, from scandalous courtship to tragic honeymoon aboard the Titanic, which made them the most famous couple of their time. Guys, seriously, I love all things Titanic. I love the story of John Jacob Astor and Madeline Astor, because it's like they had a very short-lived marriage and then it's just tragically cut short there on the Titanic. I freaking love that story. I love all things Titanic. So yeah, I'm just ridiculously excited about this book, and I need it now in my life. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, and this looks like it's part of a new trilogy that's coming out. This is book 1. And so yeah, we're taking place in China, 1345. I'm already hooked right there. China lies under harsh Mongol rule. For the starving peasants of the Central Plains, greatness is something found only in stories. When the Zhou family's 8th-born son, Zhou Changba, is given a fate of greatness, everyone is mystified as to how it will come to pass. The fate of nothingness received by the family's clever and capable second daughter, on the other hand, is only as expected. When a bandit attacks when a bandit attack orphans the 2 children, though it is Zhou Changba who succumbs to despair and dies. Desperate to escape her own fated death, the girl uses her brother's identity to enter a monastery as a young male novice. There, propelled by her burning desire to survive, Zhou learns she is capable of doing whatever it takes, no matter how callous, to stay hidden from her fate. And yet, this book is kind of, down here at the very, very bottom, it says that this book is kind of like a mashup between Mulan and The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So yeah, if you love the Disney cartoon Mulan, and if you like Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles, I think this is the type of book that's really going to appeal to you, because that's certainly what it sounds like. Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson. Grace Steele and Eliza Jones may be from completely different backgrounds, but when it comes to the Army, specifically the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, they are both starting from the same level. Not only will they be among the first class of female officers the Army has ever seen, they are also the first black women allowed to serve. As these courageous women help to form the 688th Central, I hope I got those numbers right, Central Postal Directory Battalion. I feel like that's a tongue twister right there. They are dealing with more than just Army bureaucracy. Everyone is determined to see this experiment fail. For 2 northern women, learning to navigate their way through the segregated army may be tougher than boot camp. Grace and Eliza know that there is no room for error. They must be more perfect than everyone else. When they finally make it overseas, to England and then France, Grace and Eliza will at least be able to do their parts for the country they love, whatever the risks to themselves. And yeah, it does say it's based on a true story about, I guess, these 2, I guess about this U.S. battalion of all black women. That sounds cool. I definitely have to pick that up too. This is another book that I'm pretty ridiculously excited about, you guys. This is The Death of Jane Lawrence, and it's a really intriguing cover, by Caitlin Starling. Practical, unassuming Jane Shoringfield has done the calculations and decided that the most secure path forward is this: a husband in a marriage of convenience who will allow her to remain independent and occupied with meaningful work. Her first choice, the dashing but reclusive Dr. Augustine Lawrence, agrees to her proposal with only one condition: that she must never visit Lindridge Hall, his crumbling family manor outside of town. Yet, on their wedding night, an accident strands her at his door in a pitch-black rainstorm, and she finds him changed. Gone is the bold, courageous surgeon, and in his place is a terrified, paranoid man, one who cannot tell reality from nightmare, and fears Jane is an apparition come to haunt him. By morning, Augustine is himself again, but Jane knows something is deeply wrong at Lindridge Hall, and with the man she has so hastily bound herself to, set in a dark mirror version of post-war England, Starling crafts a new kind of gothic horror from the bones of the beloved canon. This Crimson Peak-inspired story assembles, then upends every expectation set in place by Shirley Jackson and Rebecca, and will leave readers shaken, desperate to begin again as soon as they are finished. The synopsis of this is like they got me with a bunch of stuff. First saying this is inspired by something like Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak, which I freaking love Crimson Peak, you guys. And then, yeah, mentioning like Shirley Jackson, who wrote, Haunting of Hill House. And then, of course, Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here. I'm freaking loving it. I'm definitely going to have to pick this up as well. The Magician by Tobin. He's Irish. I can't pronounce it. I think I definitely butchered his pronunciation. I'm seriously not quite sure how to pronounce his name. I know that he wrote Brooklyn, and I do love Brooklyn. I saw that movie with Saoirse Ronan. It was great. So yeah, so he has a new novel here. Let's see. It opens in a provincial German city at the turn of the 20th century, where the boy, Thomas Mann, grows up with a conservative father, bound by propriety, and a Brazilian mother, alluring and unpredictable. Young man hides his artistic aspirations from his father and his homosexual desires from everyone. He is infatuated with one of the richest, most cultured Jewish families in Munich, and he marries the daughter Katja. They have 6 children. On a holiday in Italy, he longs for a boy he sees on a beach and writes the story Death in Venice. He is the most successful novelist of his time, winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, a public man whose private life remains secret. He is expected to lead the condemnation of Hitler, whom he underestimates. His oldest daughter and son, leaders of Bohemianism and of the anti-Nazi movement, they all share lovers. Good Lord, what's going on in this plot summary? Good God. He flees Germany for Switzerland, France, and ultimately America, living first in Princeton and then in Los Angeles. I feel like this plot summary is a little over the place. I feel like the sentences are all kind of running into each other and they don't really make much sense here. Unless it's just me reading it. I don't know. But yeah, this is like a true story about, like, Thomas Mann. I didn't know all this about Thomas Mann, his life and whatnot. I've heard of him through name, but yeah, I didn't know all this other stuff, like his private life, if that makes sense. 3 Words for Goodbye by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. New York, 1937. When estranged sisters Clara and Madeline Summers learn their grandmother is dying, they agree to fulfill her last wish, to travel across Europe together. They are to deliver 3 letters in which Violet will say goodbye to those she hasn't seen since traveling to Europe 40 years earlier, a journey inspired by famed reporter Nellie Bly. Clara, ever dutiful, sees the trip as an inconvenient detour before her wedding to millionaire Charles Hancock, but it's also a chance to embrace her love of art. A budding journalist, Madeline, relishes the opportunity to develop her ambitions to report on the growing threat of Hitler's Nazi Party and Mussolini's control in Italy. Constantly at odds with each other as they explore the luxurious Queen Mary, the Orient Express, and the sights of Paris and Venice, Clara and Madeline wonder if they can fulfill Violet's wish, until a shocking truth about their family brings them closer together. But as they reach Vienna to deliver the final letter, old grudges threaten their reconciliation again. As political tensions rise and Europe feels increasingly volatile, the pair are glad to head home on the Hindenburg, where fate will play its hand in the final stage of their journey. Did this plot summary just spoil the end of the damn book? I think it just did. Because if these 2 characters are going to get on the Hindenburg, well, we know how that's going to go, because no one survived the Hindenburg, correct? It's not like the Titanic, because, at least the Titanic, if you write a historical fiction about the Titanic, there's a chance, a 50-50 chance, your main protagonists are going to live or die. But yeah, if you're doing something with the Hindenburg, I feel like it's like an obvious spoiler. Hey, your protagonist ain't going to get out alive of this book unless something kind of hinders them from getting on the Hindenburg at the last minute. So yeah, I don't know if this plot summary on Goodreads kind of just spoiled the end of the damn book. Like, oh, these 2 characters are going to die. This is another book that I'm pretty excited about, and that's only because I read Mexican Gothic, and I'm really curious to read another, you know, kind of her follow-up to Mexican Gothic. And yeah, this is Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Like I said, she came out with Mexican Gothic last year, right? And that was wildly successful and popular, so I think a lot of us are really kind of anxious, where is she going to go from there? We take place in Mexico City in the 1970s. Maddie, I'm not sure how to pronounce. Is it Maddie? Maybe Maddie? Maddie is a secretary who lives for one thing, the latest issue of Secret Romance. While student protests and political unrest consume the city, Maddie escapes into stories of passion and danger. Her next-door neighbor, Lenora, a beautiful art student, seems to live a life of intrigue and romance that Maddie envies. When Lenora disappears under suspicious circumstances, Maddie finds herself searching for the missing woman and journeying deeper into Lenora's secret life of student radicals and dissidents. Meanwhile, someone else is also looking for Lenora at the behest of his boss, a shadowy figure who commands goon squads dedicated to squashing political activists. Elvis is an eccentric criminal who longs to escape his own life. He loathes violence and loves old movies and rock and roll, but as Elvis searches for the missing woman, he comes to observe Maddie from a distance and grows more and more obsessed with this woman who shares his love of music and the unspoken loneliness of his heart. I'm actually pretty... In some ways, the plot summary doesn't really appeal to me. It's not really the type of book I'd be interested in, but yeah, because, you know, Silvia Moreno Garcia did Mexican Gothic, I'm kind of intrigued to see what her next book is like. A Woman of Intelligence. A Fifth Avenue address, parties at the plaza, 2 healthy sons, and the ideal husband. What looks like a perfect life for Katarina Edgeworth is anything but. It's 1954, and the post-war American dream has become a nightmare. A born and bred New Yorker, Katarina is the daughter of immigrants, Ivy League educated, and speaks 4 languages. As a single girl in 1940s Manhattan, she is a translator at the newly formed United Nations, devoting her days to her work and the promise of world peace, and her nights to cocktails and the promise of a good time. Now the wife of a beloved pediatric surgeon and heir to a shipping fortune, Katarina is trapped in a gilded cage, desperate to escape the constraints of domesticity, so when she is approached by the FBI and asked to join their ranks as an informant, Katarina seizes the opportunity. A man from her past has become a high-level Soviet spy, but no one has been able to infiltrate his circle. Enter Katarina, the perfect woman for the job. Navigating the demands of the FBI and the secrets of the KGB, she becomes a courier, carrying stolen government documents from D.C. to Manhattan. But as those closest to her lose their covers and their lives, Katarina's secret soon threatens to ruin her. Ooh, sounds good. And the last book that I have here, you guys, is The Women's March, a novel of the 1913 women's suffrage procession by Jennifer Chiaverini. 25-year-old Alice Paul returns to her native New Jersey after several years on the front lines of the suffrage movement in Great Britain. Weakened from imprisonment and hunger strikes, she is nevertheless determined to invigorate the stagnant suffrage movement in her homeland. 9 states have already granted women voting rights, but only a constitutional amendment will secure the vote for all. To inspire support for the campaign, Alice organizes a magnificent procession down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. the day before the inauguration of President-elect Woodrow Wilson, a firm anti-suffragist. Joining the party is 39-year-old New Yorker Maud Malone, librarian and advocate for women's and workers' rights. The daughter of Irish immigrants, Maud has acquired a reputation and a criminal record for interrupting politicians' speeches with pointed questions they'd rather ignore. Civil rights activist and journalist Ida B. Wells Barnett resolves that women of color must also be included in that march, and the proposed amendment. Born into slavery in Mississippi, Ida worries that white suffragists may exclude black women if it serves their own interests. So then, yeah, on March 3rd, 1913, the march commences, but negligent police allow vast crowds of belligerent men to block the parade route, jeering, shouting threats, assaulting the marchers, endangering not only the success of the demonstration, but the women's very lives. And yes, as inspired, obviously, by actual events. So that is it for all of my recommendations for some historical fiction coming up in the remaining half of the year. Like I said, please share with me down below some other books that you guys have perhaps heard of that maybe I have not, because I'm always looking for good ones. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you made it through, congrats to you, because I know it's pretty lengthy, because it's just me reading, essentially. It's just me reading stuff to you, because you could go to Goodreads yourself and read it, but yeah, that's kind of the best way I approach these videos. So yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.